Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Android Programming. In this session, I'll be talking about how to create a material spinner and populate the spinner from Sqlite database in Android. Data could be saved to Sqlite database through embedded JSON or an online web services. The method I'll be using is quite robust with no use of deprecated APIs. You would make use of the loader API, customize adapter or layout, view recycling, API level 4 backward compatible, and background thread data loading. I'll be heading straight to Android Studio where we will be including the dependency from the library we'll be using to have the material spinner, and we'll be setting up the contract, the DB helper with a provider based on the snippets I had earlier in the fragrance shopping cart system, where we'll be embedding the JSON into the raw folder. So we're actually going to be calling data from the raw folder, and we save that to the Sqlite database. The juicy part is how to translate the data in the Sqlite database into the spinner. Let's get started. In the build Gradle model app session, and your dependency will need to include this dependency, very important. The com.github Gamfra material spinner 2.0.0, very important. This will employ you to use the 26.1.0 app compat version 7 version. So you have that set up. For you to make use of this version, you could just add to all projects the repositories JCenter. You point out Maven, where you point the URL to https maven.google.com. Once you have that set up, sync Gradle. That's going to download the specific version of the app compact, and you have that set up. Heading straight to the rest, where I have the layout files. I have the activity main and some helper layout, where we have the drop down int item, the int item, and the list item to hold on to the data which will be showed on the spinner. I'll start up with the activity main, which is the launcher XML, as we all see. Let me get to bring this down. Okay, cool. I have the material spinner text view, which says select desired fragrance. Cool. And you include the material spinner tag, where you are actually going to specify the layer width and height, match parent for the width, while the height I gave it 70 dp. You could actually tweak that to your taste. Enable the error label first, floating label first. You might actually add a floating label as well. And we have a layout below, which is actually calling the layout below the plain text, rather, which is actually sitting below the text view. And where I want to actually specify is the drop down int view, where you'll be pointing at a helper layout called the drop down int item right there in the layout XML. We'll get to look at that. We also have the int view as well, which is calling the int item. The int you could actually decide to place the text there, probably select a package, select a plan, or so on, and the color to the int, which is the text, give it a sort of blue. Now let's get to look at the drop down int item. This just a mere text view, where that's the background of a darker gray color, and the rotation is vertical. That's the drop down int item. The int item itself, it's also a text view with a color which is kind of slightly gray, which has a background color of slightly gray, as I've said earlier. Layout width and height, match parents and wrap content respectively, and the ellipse size, it's a mark Q, while the text alignment inherits. So that's actually going to align the text. Let's get to look at the item that we'll be expecting. A mere text view as well, which gives an idea of plain text, and the font family sans serif, the text appearance a medium, and also a color of a gray color, a darker gray color. So that's just what the layout we're going to be using. Firstly, for the drop down int, the int item, and the list item, which will actually bind to the values which we'll be getting from the Sqlite database too. From here, I'll be heading straight to the classes. In the classes, I have a sub package called data, where we're going to have the contract, the DB helper, and the provider. Before I go further, I would like to look at the raw file. In the raw folder, I have the fragrance JSON. That's where I'm going to actually get the data from. So you could actually use a web services, depends on how you are calling your data. You could use any APIs out there, and you could also generate data from the user. Probably the user needs to input data into the application or save straight down to the Sqlite database. Any form, anywhere your data is coming from, they could actually be used in the spinner. So I'm having an embedded JSON where I called it fragrance.json. I'm actually going to be decompiling and digging deep into this JSON in the fragrance DB helper, where I'm actually going to save directly to the Sqlite database. I'll start out with the contract. We need to set up our contract, where we set up the content authority, the base content URI, the path to the table, and a static inner class called the fragrance entry that implements the base columns. This is where we set the columns we'll be using. These are the fields, which are very important. The table name of this particular table called fragrances. The columns, the first column is an ID, which will be auto increment. We have for the column name the description, image, price, and user rating. Those are the fields that will be used to set up this table. And we're going to set that up in the fragrance DB helper. In the DB helper, well, you extend the Sqlite open helper. We have a tag to actually speed down to the console, and the database name, very important, fragrances or fragrance.db. The database version 1. You have a copy of the Sqlite database and a copy of the content resolver that interacts with the content provider, and the resources, which is used to read data from the res or assets folder. A constructor of the fragrance DB helper, you get to initialize the feeds you actually set up earlier, the resources, the content resolver, and the DB. In the DB, you get the writable database, so it's usable to actually interact with the Sqlite database. Once you implement or once you extend the Sqlite open helper, you have to write two methods: the onCreate and the onUpgrade. In the onCreate, that's where you create your table, and you could see the creation of the table, where we specify the data type, integer for ID, column name text, description text, image text, price, review, while user rating, integer, and also the unique and attributes we need, not null, unique. Unique means this is only unique, so any data coming in must actually have a different value. Once it has the same value, it's not going to actually insert into the Sqlite database. That's what the unique is doing. So we add the unique for the column name, which will make us get the unique value of each data coming in. And after that, you trigger the execute SQL to the DB, since you have the DB to write to the database. We have a try and catch block here. In the try method, or in the try block, you have the read fragrances from the resources, since we are actually going to read from the raw folder. That's why we have that method there. And you need to catch two exceptions: the IO exception, input and output, and the JSON, since we are actually having a JSON value exception. Let's get to look at the method read fragrances from resources. This throws the IO exception and the JSON exception. Yeah, and we'll get to use the stream builder, the input stream, the buffer reader, and to actually dig deeper to parse the JSON we are having. Now we use the input stream. You open up the raw resources, calling the raw fragrance.json, and you pass that into the input stream, which will also intermittently be passed into the buffer reader constructor, where we instantiate the buffer reader and we pass that as a parameter. You have a reader. In the reader, that's the reader you use to read each line of the buffer. You read that up and you append that to the builder. So that's actually going to have a builder which you use to parse the resources into key values, the key values pairs. So you have a raw JSON as the bunch of data. Now let's get to dig further. You need to use a try and catch block as well. At this point in time, you would have specified the objects, or let's say the identifiers that you'll be using. The fragrances, which is actually for the array, the fragrance name, the description, image URL, price, and user rating. Those are the values you really want to extract from the JSON. You're going to use the JSON object to parse the JSON, the raw JSON you're having, and you have an array, which is the BGS fragrance. Let's get to look at the fragrances JSON again. This is the array I'm talking. You firstly start from an object, because that's the start of the JSON. After that, you pass down to the array, and the array has an identifier called fragrances. So that's why we're actually going to use that right there. So that's the BGS fragrances. You could see it. You need to iterate through the array to extract those values from the array length. You could actually iterate that. You start from the counters if it's 0, and if the counter is less than the length of the array, and you iterate, you add 1 to that until this clause gets to false. At this point in time, you're still passing the real data type of values you're expecting. The string for fragrance name, string for description, string for image URL, double, price, integer user rating. Once you have that set up, you could actually start to extract values and passing them down to their appropriate variables that you actually set up here. So cool. After that, you could trigger the content values. Content values are actually helps to actually save data, let's say temporarily, which you could intermittently save to the Sqlite database. So if you notice, an object of the content values, you use that to put in the fragrance name into the column of the fragrance, called the column name, the description into the column called description, image URI into the column called column image. The same thing goes down until you get to the last value that you're trying to add to the Sqlite database. After that, you trigger the DB insert, or you could also trigger the content resolver if you're actually using a content provider to insert into the database. Now we actually insert it directly into the database. You point at the table name and the fragrances values, which is the object of the content values where you actually put data into. After that, you have that saved to the Sqlite database, and you need to catch for the JSON exception, since you're actually decompiling JSON values here. After that, you have your full data saved into the Sqlite database, and you could actually fetch data from there. That's not really the core of what we are about talking today. You have the provider there, which would actually help to call those values from the Sqlite database. In the provider, you extend the content provider. Once you do that, you override few methods. You override the get type of the query method, the insert, the delete, and the update. Those are the methods that you're going to override. And you have the URL matcher for fragrances and the fragrances with ID. Cool. You create a static initializer. This is going to run the first time anything is called from this class, where you're going to parse in the fragrances and the fragrance with an ID. That's the whole bunch of values, or just a specific row. That's just what that means. In the query method, you create a switch and try for the first case. If it's fragrances, you call the database query to query the table name, the projection, selection, its arguments, and the sort order. Those are the parameters you could pass into the query method. After that, if it's for a fragrance that's just one of the fragrance, you do that as well. This we only need for the query method and the insert, since we're going to be inserting and also will be querying. In the insert, you trigger the insert fragrance, which is a URI, and also I would like to look at the way it's been inserted into the database. You call the database insert, since the database has a get right table database implementation, the table name and the values that you're inserting to the database. So that's just the implementation we need, the insert and the query. The delete and update could be done later on if you want to extend more on the application. That takes me down to the main activity. The main activity, which is the launcher. The data package will actually run at the background to save those values into the Sqlite database, which you're not going to see. And now the main activity where we need to populate views, what will be accessible to the user. Extend the app compact activity. Now we're going to implement the loader manager, calling the callbacks, passing the cursor database as a parameter. In this implementation, you need to override the method, the onCreate loader, the onload finish, and the onloader reset. Those are the three methods you need to override once you implement the loader manager. In the onCreate method, you need to instantiate the fragrance DB helper. You trigger the DB helper to work. That's the first line you could see here. After setting the content view of the activity main, let's move further. You call the get support loader manager to initialize the loader. Without this line, the loader is not going to work. It's not going to be initialized. It's not going to be triggered once you have that set up. And now we need a cursor adapter, the plan cursor adapter, which we're actually going to bind values to the spinner. This is an object of the cursor adapter, instantiates that, and you pass in the this activity and the null parameter, which is actually going to serve as the cursor for now. You're going to actually swap the cursor when the loader finished. So you have that set up, and we'll get to look at the plan cursor adapter later on. In the three methods you're trying to you're going to implement, in the onCreate loader, you have the projection. The projection is the columns that you needed. What columns are you calling? What columns are you querying? What columns are you accessing from the Sqlite database? You're accessing the ID, name, description, image, price, and user rating. After that, you add that as a projection array. You return a new cursor loader. You pass in this, which is the parent activity context. The second parameter is the URI, which is the provider content URI to the query, and the projection, which serves as the column to include in the resulting cursor. And you have null values for this. The first null is the selection clause, the second is the selection argument, while the third is the sort order. If you really want to sort your query, you pass in that. On load finish, once you finish loading from the Sqlite database via the content provider in the background thread, you're going to actually swap the cursor. We're going to have this method right there in the plan cursor adapter with the data you actually gotten. This data is a cursor data, bunch of data, usable, which you still need to iterate through to get the values from. At the point where the loader finished, you could now instantiate the material spinner. You would have created this right there earlier, the material spinner and the plan cursor adapter. So you're now using the object. You instantiate the spinner right there by pointing at the ID called spinner, which you have in the layout, and you set the adapter to the plan cursor adapter. You set the spinner adapter to the plan cursor adapter. And you could also extend more on the spinner. You set an on item selected listener to the spinner. So once you select an item right there from the spinner, this method is going to be triggered to actually take cognizance, to actually take attributes of what you've selected on. Once you point at the set on item selected listener, you need to instantiate the adapter view where you trigger the on item selected listener, and you override two methods, the on item selected and on nothing selected. On item selected is what you'll be particularly concerned about. That's where you could actually extract the values. You could actually do this. You could do a lot of funky things from here. You could actually get the long value and append that with an ID to the content URI you have it, which you could actually use an intent to push further to another activity. At the point of getting to another activity, you use the same content URI gotten or passed as an intent to load data from the Sqlite database and extract the value which was selected from the spinner. I hope you understand it. That's why I actually commented this out. I will actually go further, probably creating a detail page of this spinner once you click and once you select to another activity. On loader reset, you swap the cursor you pass null into that, so it's actually going to reset the loader. Now let's get to look at the plan cursor adapter. That's where the binding is actually going to. That's where the view, that's where the data is going to be binded. With this extend the cursor adapter, Once you extend this cursor adapter, you don't need to specify the swap cursor since you are not using a recycler view, or you majorly you use a list view with the cursor adapter. If you are using a recycler view, you need to specify the swap cursor method right there. But this is the most direct and the simple way to actually bind cursor data to the view. Extend cursor adapter, you need to override two methods, the new view and the bind view. Those two methods are just okay for you. In the new view, that's where you need to inflate the list item, the layout you're using to bind values to. While in the bind value, you don't need to actually iterate or move the cursor to the first position and before you extract the column index. After you now extract the value itself from the column index. That's how you do majorly if you're actually using a recycler view. But now this is just direct. You don't need to move to the first. You just extract the values and you're good to go. Once you extract the values, you get the column index over here, which is the column index for the column name, for the description, image, price, user rating, and you get the values and pass that to the variable over here. And now you could actually set that to the text view, which you have as plain text here, and you have a text view over here, and you set the text. Now we only need which value, the description, that's the name of the fragrance, some space, the price, another space, and probably the rating. Depends on what you want to actually display on the text view or display on the list item which you've actually created in the layout XML. Cool. With that, we could have a straight line. Probably we're going to have Gucci going for $50, rating 6 star. Cool. So once you select that, the on item selected will take cognizance of that URI, which could actually fetch more content, more data of what you selected in probably a previous page or in the next page or in the detail page. So cool. This is actually going to end the whole explanation of how to achieve a material spinner and populate the spinner from the Sqlite database in Android. Let's look at the manifest. In a manifest, you just need to lock in your provider. You set in your provider right there after the activity, not outside the application tag. Right inside there, you point at the content authority you're using, which is Com Deliver Studios, Material Spinner, Sqlite. That's the package name. Once you have that as the authority, exported files, you might actually export your data, which other application could listen to data from the content provider. So cool. This is quite robust, and this is one of the best way to set up your material spinner and populate the spinner from the Sqlite database in Android. This is highly recommended. I will implore you to lay hands on the source code and use it in the course of your application. Tweak it, get out some snippets out of it and make use of it. And at the same time, I'm going to be showing you the screencast of how this is actually flowing. That's quite cool, and it's actually smooth to use. Thank you guys for hanging out with me throughout the session, and please don't forget to like the video, share the video, share it to your friends, share it to your colleagues, share to good listeners out there too. Share to people that are ready and they are devoted in working in developing Android applications. And lastly, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Have a wonderful time. Bye bye for now.